Good morning, everyone. In last few classes, we talked about firstly the Second Sino-Japanese War, and then we talked about the formation of the Second United Front. And last class, we talked about the result for the Second Sino-Japanese War, right? So today we're going to learn a direct result for the end of the Sino-Japanese War, which was the Chinese Civil War, and then we're going to talk about the establishment of People's Republic of China in 1949. Firstly, this is the time when Japan surrendered for the Second World War. So after Japan surrendered in China, a mad race took place between Kuomintang and CCP. So what kind of mad race? Why they need to compete with each other? When Japan surrendered in China, of course their troops will leave China, but a lot of their military supplies need to hand over to China instead. So this is a time when the big boss in the computer game was defeated. There will be golden coins, real weaponry falling on land. And this is the time when you and your teammates try every best to collect them, as many as you can. And the basic rule is just first come, first serve, right? So the same situation actually happened after the Japan surrendered to China. That is the reason why both CCP and Kuomintang, they're trying to reach the occupied territories, not only to receive the Japanese surrender, more importantly, to harvest the vast quantity of enemy arms and military supplies. Because they knew that the only reason for the formation of the Second United Front is because they share the same enemy, Japan. So now they have eliminated the enemy, right? So that means the basic foundation for the Second United Front has collapsed. Then their conflicts may be resumed at any time. So these kind of military supplies actually can be very important for them to take advantage position in their conflicts. So for communists, actually you can see communists, they built their base in Yan'an, right? So in the context, the communists, they seem to enjoy a distinct geographical advantage. They were in control of 18 liberated areas in North, South, and Central China. Like a lot of big cities, for example, Beiping, Tianjin, Shanghai, Nanjing, Hankou. These cities were all liberated areas belongs to the communists. So combined in these 18 liberated areas, there were a population of 100 million and also boasted of 1 million regular troops and 2 million militia men. That means not only that in these areas they have military supplies and resources, more importantly they have human sources, they have some regular troops, right? So if they can take over these places, that means it has greatly advantaged their position in the future conflicts. So they did took a very quick action. Directly on 9th of August 1945, Mao Zedong has already announced that the hour has arrived for our CCP to mount a general offensive. So on 9th of August 1945, what do you think has happened? What is the situation for the Second World War? Do you still remember when the US sent those two atomic bombs to Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Actually, the bomb which was sent to Hiroshima was on 6th of August, and the atomic bomb which was sent to Nagasaki was on that date, on 9th of August 1945, right? That is the same day when Mao Zedong announced their general offensive. And Zhu De, who is the commander-in-chief of the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, has directly took an important action, which was to just the next day, right? On 10th of August, Zhu De ordered his troops to seize all towns, cities, and communication center under Japanese occupation to receive the enemy's surrender and, more importantly, the military supplies. And also, just within 2 weeks, the Communist Party expanded their territory from only 116 counties to 175 counties. So when we talk about the geographical advantage for the Communist Party, actually compares to the nationalists. When the nationalist forces were in the Western China because of the Ichiko operation, remember the huge project made by Japan, which we introduced in our last video, right? So because they were in deep Western China, that is the reason why they were less favorable situated in the race when it comes to the geographical advantage. So to overcome the communist geographical advantage, Chiang actually has another advantage. Instead of the geographical one, he has the support of US, right? That is the reason why Chiang he requested the US to help to airlift and sea lift his troops to the occupied areas. That means they can have a very quick movement to locate all their troops to take over all those liberation areas, right? So 3 government armies were airlifted to Beiping, Tianjin, Shanghai, and Nanjing. Actually, these were used to be the liberation areas, which belongs to communists. But because of their quick movements, actually, they gained the priority at this period of time, right? And also, as a result, a total of 500,000 troops were transported to various parts of the country to get places and to harvest all those military supplies with the help of America. You can see like Chiang Kai-shek and his wife is really happy with the help of the US, right? So basically, round 1 for the conflicts between communists and the nationalists, the winner is the nationalists, right? With the US assistance and also very important for the Japanese cooperation. Because Chiang Kai-shek actually officially asked Japan to allow passage only of nationalist troops to the occupied territory. That means if the communist troops they went to the former occupied territory belongs to Japan, the Japanese troops shouldn't pass those military supplies to the communists, but only to the nationalist party instead. So when Japan they fully complied this kind of request, actually for nationalists they gain a huge advantage at this part. So the lesson learned from this round. So if we have 2 options, the geographical advantage and also the US support, which do you think is more important? Of course, the US support is vital. When they allow nationalist party to have a very quick movement, and when they gave like privilege to Chiang Kai-shek to ask Japan to allow only them can take all those territory and military supplies from the Japanese troops, right? So you can see the US attitude can be vital for the post-war China, especially after the Treaty of San Francisco. Remember what that was? The treaty between Japan and the US, right? Their influence in Asia has greatly increased compared to the old times. But you have to see, when we talk about the support from US, their attitude actually is quite neutral at this stage. Even though they supported the Nationalist Party after the Second World War, but you still have to see after the success of the first round for the Nationalist Party, the US they announced a new policy to the nationalists. That is for continuing our support. So if you need our continuous support, military support and economic support, you need to employ the US arms to conduct a civil war. That means yes, we're still supporting you economically and even militarily, but you need to admit that you're not using any of the US power, military power, to start a Chinese civil war. That means actually for US, they strive the Nationalist Party to reach a peace settlement with the communists instead of starting a Chinese civil war, right? For the first few years, the United States tried to broker peace between the two sides. For example, the Chongqing negotiation to have a peace settlement between the two parties, right? So Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong, they congrats each other while celebrating China's victory over Japan at the end of the Second World War. It is the first time they met, but it's also the last time they will ever see each other. So you can see actually the conflicts between them and the difference between them is not really practical to solve only by, for example, holding a negotiation to talk it out. And this is also the reason why, even though they try to negotiate with each other under the help of US, no substantial achievements was actually made in this kind of Chongqing negotiation. And also him, the Patrick Hurley in this picture, he was so angry and feel such a failure after the negotiation, and also he just went back to US. So for US, since they still want the peace settlement, that is the reason why they even sent Marshall to China, the China mission. Which Marshall? The very famous one, Marshall Plans Marshall. And also his title is like very fancy one compared to the old one. He is the special presidential ambassador to China. But we have to admit, because he's so famous and also he like have so many achievements, that is the reason why at the early age, at the early period, he gained a periodical success. For example, in January 1946, a political consultative conference, that means another conference, which actually caused an immediate ceasefire. That means this is a time when they stop really military fighting each other, and also a restoration of communication. But you have to see, this is kind of temporary ceasefire. It's only like a means from both parties to save face for Marshall. A result of Marshall's active persuasion and respected stature, while both of the parties try to flatter him and remain a good relationship with him, because like he's so important and he's so respected by all the people. This is the reason why, in order to flatter him, they just admit this kind of temporary ceasefire. And also you have to admit the cooperation between these two parties was nearly impossible, except on a temporary basis, right? So under this, neither Kuomintang or the CCP, they trust each other, since both were revolutionary parties. They both want to eliminate the other by a revolutionary means, right? So after a very short time of immediate ceasefire, in June 1946, Chiang Kai-shek still chose to resolve the problem by military means. And also a full-scale civil war broke out. My question here is, remember the time when US in 1945, they said that you are not really using our arms to conduct a civil war. So why Chiang Kai-shek, he didn't afraid that they would directly withdraw their military and economic aid? So what happened in 1946? Maybe you will mention the Truman Doctrine, right? But actually here, Truman Doctrine hasn't really been like proposed. The Truman Doctrine was started in 1947. But in June 1946, this is like 3 months after the Iron Curtain speech. So you can see under the background of the emergence of the Cold War, Chiang Kai-shek, they think the US, they could not afford to see China will slip to the communists, right? They need to like blockade, they need to stop the expansion of the communism. So of course, they will try their best to stop the expansion of communism in China. Of course, they can't imagine if like such a huge country like China turned to a communist country. So Chiang Kai-shek think they would have no choice but to come to the aid of nationalists in order not to have another communist state, right? So actually, yes, US continued their support. But you have to see, because these nationalists, they make so many decisions which is like not flattered and not under the teaching of US. That is the reason why they actually make those US authorities really unhappy by not listening to them. That is the reason why the US support was always behind time and limited. So you can see first the nationalists made spectacular advance into areas with the victory of the first round with the sources, right? In central and northeast China. So the communists enlarged their army and reorganized the troops into the PLA, the People's Liberation Army. And in mid-1947, the communists began to counterattack. And also, you have to see, to some time, the U.S. has withdrew their support, while on the other hand, Soviet Union has provided support to China, the Communist Party of China, right? So from September 1948 to January 1949, the communists had won 3 campaigns in Liaoshan, Huaihai, and Pingjing, respectively. They controlled most of northeast, northern, and central China. And as a result, in April 1949, the communists, they captured Nanjing. And in October the same year, the PRC was established. So you can see the result is obvious, is the victory of Communist Party, right? So the next part, you need to be able to explain why Communist Party they were able to win over Nationalist Party in the Chinese Civil War, and why for the Nationalists, even though they have a very starter advantage in the first round conflicts, and also they have the help and support from the US, they still lose in the Chinese Civil War. So please go to Teams and see the tactic worksheet for this topic. So in that worksheet, you're going to find a table. For the table, there are 4 columns. For the first 3 columns, I already filling all the blanks for you. For the first column, there will be different aspects relate to the communist power and nationalist power. And for the second and third column, there will be different description on different aspects of the communist development and the nationalist development during the Chinese Civil War. So what you need to do is you need to make comparisons between these 2 development of these 2 parties, and to tell that in different aspects, for example, leadership, which party do you think had a greater chance to win the Chinese Civil War concerning with different aspects? For example, here, what I did is I highlight the expression or sentence to yellow if that is a part of a positive like impact, a positive aspect of the development of that party, while on the other hand, I highlight in all the expressions and the sentences in green color if that is about a negative aspect of the development of that party. So I can make use of these like important expression or sentence to help me to answer when it comes to leadership. Maybe from here you can see Communist Party, they have like a lot of positive aspect. Well, on the other hand, the National Party, they only have a negative one, right? This is the reason why I think for here, the Communist Party had a greater chance to win because, so make use of these points to support your answer. You're going to finish the whole table. This is the homework for this part of the studies, and also it's like very important. You need to finish it in time, okay? So you have to see the result as the victory of Communist Party. They think at the end of 1949, the Civil War had been largely settled. Even though there's still some like regional conflicts in different parts of China, so the Communist Party think it's a time for them to make arrangements for the whole nation, right? So in September, the communists, they invited delegates of the various party and organizations, which of course support them in the Chinese Civil War, right? To discuss affairs concerning the founding of the nation. That means they're not really following the leadership of Nationalist Party, and they try to start to form a new nation of their own, right? They formed the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, Common Program here is the meaning here. And under the program, it already gave like different directions and instructions for the form of the nation. For example, the name will be People's Republic of China, the nature of his rule will be people's democratic dictatorship. We're going to talk about what is people's democratic dictatorship next class. This is like the most important thing for the Maoist period. And also this is also a provisional constitution. That means that like the rationale and principles for the formation of the country. And also the capital was settled for Beijing and changed the name from Beiping to Beijing, as Jing is like the capital in Chinese, right? And also the national flags was a 5-star red flag, and also national anthem is the March of the Volunteers. And then Mao Zedong was elected as the chairman, while they have Zhu De, Liu Shaoqi, Song Qinglian, and others be the vice chairman. And also, on October the 1st, 1949, in the morning, the first plenary session of the central government was held. That means they are like announcing the arrangement for the nation, and then everyone like when agrees with it. In the afternoon of the same day, the founding ceremony of the People's Republic of China was held in the Tiananmen Square. So I'm going to play a video to show you some glance of the founding ceremony of the People's Republic of China. So after the video, I think it's still important to review the topic for this chapter, because we are making an end to this chapter about the modernization of China. So for this stage, do you think it's like a quick path for the development of the modernization of China? I think if you review what we taught in the recent videos, you will see it's all about different conflicts instead of different developments, right? I think the only thing that is relevant to modernization we talk about is the attempts for the Nanjing government, right? And also we talk about the different bases built by Mao Zedong. For some of his ideas is also a part of the modernization. But if we try to make a conclusion for this period of time, I think it is a time when people did neglect of social and economic reforms and modernization. When we talk about the political modernization, it's mostly about the representativeness of the government. It's mostly about the institutional development and constitutional development, right? I don't think there's much of this kind of modernization happened in China. So externally, it's not because of us, it's because externally we're facing a lot of threats from different countries, right? So there was little time or inclination left to tackle the seemingly less immediate of more basic problems of economic justice and social reforms, because we need to survive instead of having extra spaces for us to develop ourselves. We are under attack from different countries, right? So on the other hand, internally, it's also a very difficult time for the government because they are facing internal conflicts when we have the Chinese Civil War, which is from 1927 to 1949 or 1950, right? So internally, the nationalists lack the necessary motivation to initiate this kind of social and economic reforms. It's also because economically, the government, like financially, they mostly rely on the customs dues and the city commercial taxes for its sustenance. That means the money for the government were mainly from the commercial industry, right? And paying little attention to those agrarian problems, like the problems for the peasants. So this is a time when Mao found his highest and most successful expression when in China, more than 80% of people they live in rural areas, they work as peasants in China. When Mao, they found the revolutionary potential of these peasants masses. This has made him like so successful during this period of time to gain power for the nation and build the People's Republic of China. So this chapter will end it here. Next class, we're going to start the new chapter, the Maoist period. Okay, see you in the next video.